been practicing for 40 years, and I've got a lot of litigation experience. I've got a lot of experience. When I put these documents together, it's not just like the guy who is an office lawyer who says, okay, here are these documents. I'm the kind of guy who can stand there with you shoulder to shoulder and defend these documents if we need to. When I first passed the bar, jobs were tough in 1984. I mean, if you remember, Ronald Reagan was president. He just took over from Jimmy Carter. Inflation was, like 16%. That's not a typo. That's it, 16%. It was really a crazy time, so jobs were tough. I wound up getting a job for a small firm out in North San Diego County. There was a guy that did civil work and a guy that did criminal work. And the guy that did the civil work really didn't want to spend time going to court. He wanted to be in his office all the time, generating work. And the guy who was doing the criminal work, he needed someone to cover court appearances for him because he was too busy. So the windup is they needed a young associate who could cover civil court appearances and criminal court appearances. And I got thrust into doing that. I was clerking for them when I was waiting for the bar results. And when the results came in, I went in the next day, said, oh, great, I passed the bar. And I said, there's a mass swearing in ceremony that they do downtown for all of the recent people that passed the bar. And one of the guys that I worked for, his father was a Superior Court judge. He said, you don't have to wait. He said, we can take you up to see my dad and we'll get you sworn in immediately. I was like, okay. So he calls his dad, and sure enough, 2 days later, I've got the card that he needs to sign. We show up in his courtroom out in North San Diego County, and the bailiff lets us in early in the morning before court starts. He swears in, got my two bosses behind me, one on each side of me, and this is the truth. The criminal guy had a stack of files that I'd been working on with him, and after the judge swore me in, it was all done. He took the files. He said, here you go. Here's your court appearances for the day. Literally. And I knew the cases because I was working on them. But here I was, brand new lawyer, just got sworn in, go to it. You talk about trial by fire, that was it. But a lot of my friends, they went to work for civil firms. They were stuck in conference rooms, drafting motions, not even in a deposition. And here I was, the first day that I'm sworn in, I'm making court appearances. And with criminal work, cases go to trial. And so consequently, I started trying criminal cases. And then when the civil stuff came up, well, it was a breeze for me because I was used to being in court. I had jury trials before a lot of my friends even had any court experience. So, I bring that experience to the estate planning work that I do because from an evidentiary standpoint, a lot of estate planning and probate lawyers, they've never seen the inside of a courtroom. And having had a lot of trial experience and understanding how evidence is presented or not presented gave me a whole different focus of how I set up my documents and why I do certain things the way I do and how I like to create little evidentiary events in my estate plans. So, that experience really helped me to better serve my clients, in my opinion. Well, little by little, I wound up becoming a partner in the firm that I was at. And we actually grew that firm to 6 lawyers. And as a result, we had a lot of different kinds of work coming in. We generated a lot of business clients, a lot of contractors, regular blue-collar people that I actually related to, but helping them, set up corporations, set up retirement plans, get them through permit processes to do different things. We did real estate work, so we had developer clients. Gave me a real broad, experience of work that I could do for people. And, even though I was doing that, it all still came down to, well, you're building this business or you're building this estate, and it may take you 10 or 20 years to do that. What kind of estate plan have you put in effect to protect that for your family? Because let's face it, if a business is worth building over 20 or 30 or even 40 years, that's worth protecting for your family. So ultimately, all of this litigation work that I did, all the other work that it brought in, all of these people had a need, an ultimate need to say, okay, what happens to all this stuff? How do I manage it for my family? Because, I'm working hard. I want to provide myself a good living. Ultimately, I want to provide that for my family. And I want them to continue to have that. So, that's where all of a sudden the estate planning became more of the main focus of what I was doing, because as I was aging, so was my clientele aging. And all of a sudden it was like, well, yeah, okay, here's what we need to do to start protecting this for your kids. Here's what I've done to protect things for my family. A lot of what I've done, first done it on myself. And then when I say, oh, okay, this benefits me, this is probably something that will also benefit my clients. So, you know, when you're in a profession, you're always practicing, they say. Well, I always practice on myself first, and then if it makes sense, then we roll it out to clients and say, okay, this might be something you might want to consider doing for your own family. So that's kind of what I bring to the table for a lot of people. Actually, I'm coming up on 40 years of doing this. I mean, when you think about it, I started in 1984 doing this for my grandparents, and it wasn't the main focus of my practice in the beginning, certainly, but it was there. And I've always done some estate planning work, and it just became more and more and more the focus of my practice, where now it is my practice. I've got a couple of cases that are going that are, you know, trust and estates litigation, not estates that I planned. States that other attorneys have planned that didn't go quite the way they were supposed to. And since I've got a litigation background, people ask me to take those kind of cases on. I reject probably more often than I take those cases on, because that's just not what I want to be doing at this point in my life. I really do enjoy putting the documents together and helping families have that peace of mind that comes with completing this process.